Welcome to our tutorial on how to complete our National Society mapping of capacities and future needs. This is just to explain this simplified chart that we've developed to map our engagement with national societies. You'll see on the vertical axis we're talking about National Society capacity. It's really just trying to get a sense as to what they're able to do and what they're weaker at. We divide into two areas, high capacity and low capacity. And this would apply to OD, to management capacity, and to branch capacity and so forth. On the horizontal axis, we're looking at future perceived level of needs. This is how does the National Society perceive its needs in areas such as OD, project management, disaster response, ability to serve communities, etc. And it's also divided into two. National Society that perceive their future needs as low or high, and this can also help us to identify what is the potential for PNS involvement, or is that we as Red Cross can help. So what we're going to look at is each of the regional reps will complete one of these charts per national society, indicating clearly the name of the national society in the top right box. So the information to be provided consists in placing 5 red X's in the corresponding area of the chart. So the first red X is National Society Organizational Development. Is this a functional national society with a functional board, a visionary secretary general, strategic plan, audits? Does it have a network of partners? Everything that we consider under organizational development. So from an OD capacity on the vertical axis, do we consider that the national society currently has high capacity, which would be the top half, or low capacity, it's not functional, the lower half? And on the horizontal axis, does the national society consider that it has OD needs and that it could use help to address these needs? So that would be the right side, the high needs. Or does it consider that it doesn't have needs in the future that we as the PNS could be involved in? So the same process we'll do for each of the different areas. For the National Society technical and managerial capacity, looking again whether they have the capacity to write proposals and run projects. Does it have necessary management skills? Does it have the technical teams that's able to provide training and first aid, etc.? We'll do the same thing for the National Society response systems. Does it have the ability to respond to affected populations? So that's the capacity side. Does it actually currently have the capacity within the National Civil Protection Area? And on the other axis, the horizontal one, does it consider that addressing or enhancing its response systems, its readiness to respond, is a priority area for improvements where the PNS, such as the American Red Cross, could help support? So on areas on branch structure, we'll do the same process, in looking at the 3 earlier areas of the branch level organizational development, branch level managerial capacity, technical capacity, and the response systems of the branch itself. So the branch is functional, do they have elections, strong and dynamic volunteer base? All that is related to the capacity, or horizontal axis, and then on the vertical, whether there is a sense that this is something that could be improved or enhanced. And the last point is community resilience, the capacity of the community to overcome shocks and stresses. Does the National Society have a high or low capacity, again, the horizontal axis, to support communities? Or on the contrary, and on the other axis, whether it feels that is something that it should enhance in the future. So now let's explain what we're asking you as regional reps to look at. I'll take 2 examples to do that. And so the first example, I'll look at a weak national society. It's a national society that mainly lives off limited first aid training courses, but we're going to consider one that is in a relatively wealthy country with services being provided by the government. So we'll say that this weak national society has a weak board, statutes are out of date, HR and finance systems are non-existent, and all this the national society leadership recognizes it, so they want to improve. So they have a low capacity that they recognize, but also high needs. They want to improve. They want to reach out to PNSs to do more in the future. We'll do the same assessment for the National Society technical and managerial capacity. No experienced managers, no real program, but they have a willingness to do more. So we're talking about the same thing, low capacity and high needs. On the response side, we'll say that the National Society has actually decided it's something that is not a priority for them. The civil protection system works fine. Low capacity of the National Society, but also low interest in actually doing more in that area. So it'll be the bottom left corner. And we'll do the same thing for branches. This is something a very weak branch structure, but also low priority within the national society. And then community needs are relatively limited compared to neighboring countries, perhaps because there's a strong involvement of the state through its government agencies. So the national society has not included community preparedness in its strategy. So we're talking about low capacity and low perceived needs. So we're talking about, as you can see, across the board, low capacity for this national society, but some they've identified as areas that they want to work on, and others where there's not as much interest. We'll now look at a completely different example, probably the polar opposite of a country that is relatively poor, but it has a strong, highly centralized national society with a good reputation for disaster response. Weak branches, limited interest in community service provision, but good capacity for response. So OD is not a problem. Highly functional, well-established board, limited needs. We're talking about high capacity, low interest to do anything with PNSs. Managerial and technical capacity are more limited outside of disasters. Limited capacity, but also limited interest to do more. So low capacity and lower needs in this particular national society. Response is the jewel of the national society. It focuses much of its investment on improving that system, so they don't really have identified that as an area where they would require assistance. So we're talking about high capacity and low perceived needs by the national society. The branches on the other side, they're completely left to their own devices. The headquarters really focuses on response, so a lot of needs at the branch level and little support from headquarters. So we're saying that this is something where they feel that they could perhaps improve in current years, and where we can perhaps provide that assistance. So we're really trying to see how we can focus on that particular point. And the last one, poor country, great community needs. We just want to determine to what extent the national society is interested in venturing into this new area. We'll say that there's initial interest to come into there, so high potential needs that could be addressed through a partnership with a partner national society. So this is what we're going to ask you to work on, develop one of these charts per national society, and complete them, just placing these 5 boxes within the chart, and visually represent our future engagement with the national society. Okay, good luck.